Hi, podcast listener. Welcome to Truth About Exits, a show dedicated to pulling back the curtain to reveal what it really takes to get deals closed. You'll hear directly from founders of companies who have raised capital, sold their companies, and even those who acquire other companies for growth. I'm your host, Corin Woodmass. I'm a deal maker, advisor, and when I'm not closing deals, I love to talk to others about their deals and what it took to get them closed. And now you can listen into these conversations too. For all the show notes and more resources, go to truthaboutexits.com. And we're live. So today on Truth About Exits, I have my good buddy Nate Ginsburg on the podcast. I've been trying to get Nate to talk about some of these topics for quite some time now, so I'm excited to get you on here, mate, and introduce you to our audience. Nate, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Corin, thank you for having me. And yeah, I think share your excitement in getting to dig into, whatever we get into here.
Awesome. So just as a little bit of a high point, why you might be interested to a few highlights that you might want to look out for on this interview. Nate has been traveling the world for quite some time, so location independent. He has exited a number of companies and also as an investor, active investor in a number of other companies, and also we'll get to what he's doing now. So some would say a full cycle entrepreneur, starting and exiting. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about here. But mate, I'd love to start with where you and I actually met. So we met in Chiang Mai, Thailand, in the north of Thailand, and we had a conversation. Do you remember the first time we met? I think it was at Warm Up Cafe.
Well, I remember hanging in Chiang Mai. I guess now this was like more than 5 years ago. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if I remember the specific at Warm Up, but.
So I think we were walking back towards our apartments or something, and we'd kind of met at a DC gathering, and we were walking back and happened to be walking together. I'm pretty sure this was the first night, and we were kind of kicking back and forward. Oh, what are you doing? And what are you up to kind of thing. And I remember you saying, I've got some affiliate stuff and I've got some other stuff that like you had 5 or 6 things going on. I was like, oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting. And maybe you're trying some stuff out or not really sure what's working, but it's like, okay, cool. And, we were building an e-commerce business at the time and we didn't really know what we were doing either. So it was kind of, okay, we're just getting started. But that was to consider where we started from to where we are now is kind of super interesting. So
yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I think I do remember the walk back in Santitam, to wherever we were staying. And yeah, I mean, at that time I did have, a few affiliate sites. I think you also might have had some like SEO stuff going on. Was doing some kind of random freelance marketing or project management. And yeah, definitely, was trying to figure things out. And I guess things have changed or progressed a lot, over the last 5 years, I know for us both. And it's been super cool to, from then, both of us doing, whatever we were doing. And, now to, be able to, just like, be friends throughout the whole process and our journeys. And now kind of, in some ways, coming back together, here now and, in similar spaces. And yeah, it's been a crazy journey.
Absolutely. So do you remember how or why you got into selling products via Amazon in the beginning? So the FBA stuff.
Yeah. So, I first got into, being an entrepreneur or, trying to be an entrepreneur, now was maybe, 6 or 7 years ago. And, like you mentioned, when we met, it was doing okay, was making a little bit of money, supporting myself and was traveling. And, that was kind of the first goal. But that wasn't the end goal. I was definitely like had aspirations and wanted to do something bigger. And yeah, that's like, hence I was, trying a bunch of stuff at, the time we met and, it was going okay, but none of it really seemed to be that, big opportunity or like the opportunity to really, grow or take things to another level. And so was continuing to try things and, had a lot of friends or, met a lot of people in the community that were doing different e-com stuff, drop shipping, and as well as then Amazon FBA. And so, like I had tried pretty much everything else that had seemed like it could have been a decent opportunity anyway. And so then was FBA, just started to know more people that were having some good success with it, including some pretty close friends and good friends that were so generous with their time and sharing their experience and knowledge. And, really just, not just encouraging me, but just explaining how that business model works and really just like what to do. And so yeah, gave that a try. Yeah, it started going better than any of the other things that I had going on or that I had tried. And, a couple months in, it was clear that this was going to be the thing to focus on and to grow. And so, yeah, that's how, I kind of got into FBA and was just, working on building and growing that business as much as I could.
Awesome. So yeah, it's when you get that initial traction when, like you said, okay, this is the thing, right? And typically when it's working, it's going to happen pretty quickly. Derek Sivers talks about this with CD Baby, where he was trying to be a musician and get his band out there, but this CD Baby thing was just super easy. It just worked and worked pretty quickly. So that's one thing, is once something takes hold in the beginning, that's when okay, I should double down on this and focus on it. But one thing you did mention there just in passing that I really want to highlight, something that I've been impressed to watch over time, is your ability to be able to ask questions and engage with people and seemingly get them to share everything with you straight away. So obviously you may or may not have some strategy behind that, but I'd be interested to find out, do you have a framework that you consciously think of, or is it just honestly being curious about what other people are doing?
Yeah, great question. And yeah, it's something that if there's anything to credit to, I don't know, anything that I've achieved so far, or I'm sure will achieve, it's, from having the opportunity to, learn from other people. And yeah, I think it really, I've always been a really curious person. I remember, when I was young, just would always ask a lot of questions and yeah, as I got older, I still, I don't know. Yeah. Just very curious. And especially I don't know, my favorite things to do or in the world is just interesting conversations with interesting people. And, when I meet someone then or now, and if they're doing something that I think is interesting or is new, I'm just genuinely really curious. And so I ask a lot of questions. And some stuff I've learned is that people generally like to talk about themselves and I'm genuinely interested. And so I just ask a lot of questions and they're generally happy to talk about what they're doing and how they got there. And I've also kind of, over the years, I guess, become, I don't know, I'm comfortable asking questions that other people might not ask or be shy to ask. And I usually preface it with something like, if you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to, I'm curious to hear, what do you pay X, or, what kind of margins do you target? Or I don't know, the questions that I think are, important, genuinely curious about. So yeah, just kind of having I don't even know if it's courage, but just I don't know, asking questions that some people might not ask. And something that I've actually found is that people, I don't know, people actually like getting the harder or less surface questions. And I think it's actually helped build a lot of really, strong and great relationships by just asking good questions to people. And then I don't know, they're usually pretty interesting, and then we become friends, and then we just kind of keep talking and have the opportunity to keep learning. And yeah,
I'd call that a superpower, mate. That is something that anyone can build as a skill, but that's definitely a superpower. I think there's nothing worse than small talk in the world. There's too much of it. So yeah, that's awesome. So that actually segues perfectly into getting your first investor on board. And so it was a mutual friend of ours who invested in your company while it was in hyper growth mode. So did that come about through conversations, or did you directly say, hey, I'm looking for capital? How did all of that come about?
Yeah, good question. And Yeah, so it was interesting. Like when, you talk about that kind of, hyper growth period. And I remember with my business, there was like a 4 or 5 month stretch that sales were doubling every month. And I mean, it started the first month, it was like July, it was like 1,500 in sales. And then August or June, it was, I don't know, 1,500. And then it was 3 or 4,000. And then it was 10,000. And then it was 20,000, then it was 40, then it was 80. And, coming into the holiday season in, I don't remember what year, maybe it was 2015 or 2015 or 2016. And, came into our first like 6-figure sales month, which like, oh, like that's awesome, super exciting. And I mean, is awesome and was awesome. But I remember also like looking at my bank account and being like, oh, wow, like I'm selling all this stuff, but, I basically had the same amount of money in my bank account as when, we met in Chiang Mai the couple years before. And so I was thinking like, okay, like, this is all great, but maybe I could or should take some chips off the table, or just like, I don't know. It was like, the goal wasn't to sell $100,000 a month. I mean, not that, wasn't a goal, but the goal was also like have more than $10,000 in my bank account. And so, with that in mind, I was kind of, thinking about this stuff a little bit. And just kind of, I don't know, maybe, do I sell some of the brands, or, what could I do to give myself a little stability and breathing room? And, around this same time, our mutual friend had recently had a pretty substantial exit. And we'd been friends the last few years as well, hanging out in Vietnam. And yeah, we're just, friends and stayed in touch. And anyway, we were both back in Vietnam. This was like, I think, in January after that, our first big holiday season. And we were just catching up. And I think I just kind of mentioned, I mean, I had no idea if or that there was any interest. And I just kind of mentioned like, oh, like, yeah, and, business has been going good. It's growing. And, I'm thinking about maybe, selling some, or selling a brand, or, something to, kind of take some chips off the table. And, and then our friend also kind of casually mentioned like, oh, like I'm looking to invest in some businesses. And, then that was kind of the start of what kind of became this sort of dance, so to speak, over the next kind of couple of weeks. Or, I mean, I think it was, probably over the course of maybe, in the next month or so, that we came to an agreement. And yeah, I sold 49% of the business and was able to get a little more than $10,000 into my personal bank account.
Which is awesome. I remember your brother Jeremy posting about the deal a little bit after, I think. He was saying how proud of you he was. And that was really nice to read. But also, having been alongside you in Chiang Mai in those early days, I was so proud for you, man, for that to come through. That's amazing. But I would love to dig into, with what you can reveal, obviously, whenever we're talking exits, there's a lot of confidentiality involved. So feel free to talk as much or as little as each topic as you'd like to. But I'd like to know some mechanics here, because a few years ago, I started trying to get some of our clients to think about taking on an investor instead of a full exit. And most people I spoke to were saying, oh, I don't want to give up equity. I'd just prefer to sell the whole thing. And I could see with some of the brands, some of the businesses we were talking to, the trajectory and where it was going. And for me, it was like crazy to see that they'd just prefer to sell the whole thing. And sometimes that is the right case. And obviously, as the entrepreneur, that's the best thing, is it's your asset. You can do whatever you want. But what was the thought process for you for selling 49%? And then after the transaction happened, how much of that cash did you actually keep? And how much of that cash was earmarked to go back into growing that business?
Sure. So, some of my thinking was, well, I mean, first, our friend that invested, like, one of the, most successful business guys that I knew. Also just like super good person as well as like, very successful in his career and businesses. And I think I'm still young, but was younger then. And some of us, we were talking a little bit about before we started recording of this whole, like the long-term view. And, I was thinking like, not, on like a long-term horizon, like, oh, like, would my, life and career be in a better place if I went into business with this very successful friend, that could increase my chances for, or the opportunities for long-term success. And fast forward, me and that person who invested in my business, we've now partnered on a number of deals together. And so that, they're like, our business relationship has certainly continued. And also part of it was, to get some cash off the table, put some money in my bank account. E-commerce is expensive and growth is expensive. So that was certainly a factor, not the only or the biggest. I think maybe the biggest one actually was kind of like the opportunity to think bigger. And it was cool, getting that in different kind of conversations as we led up to the deal, as well as just kind of, thinking about it in general, that being able to take some chips off the table kind of gave me the opportunity to think bigger and swing bigger. And since I had more security or stability, it gave me more confidence the confidence to think bigger and swing bigger because, I already had that some sort of financial, foundation. So a combination of I think all those things that led me to be interested in selling the little less than half of the business. And then I guess also maybe the last thing is that I retained control. And so it was, I was able to get some cash, but it was clear in the discussions that this was still my business. I was still going to run the show. And we could talk about stuff and bounce ideas or whatever. But I knew that I was supported in the decisions that I made and, what direction I wanted to take things. And so I still was able to retain the kind of freedom to run the business how I, saw fit. Of course, interested in input and ideas and feedback from my partner. But I still had the freedom and opportunity to, run the business and grow it how I, thought or wanted.
And did that open up more access to capital for you as well? Or were you just using the cash flow of the business?
Right. So yes, I just forgot another reason why I was interested is I thought that it would open up more access to capital. And this wasn't something that was actually, I don't remember if it was explicitly discussed when we were coming to the initial agreement, but I definitely thought all right, this guy has a ton of money and e-commerce growth requires cash. And okay, maybe down the line, this could open up access to capital. And then to answer and remember one of your questions from just a bit before is, so the money the sale price went into my bank account. And so, I sold 49% for X and that went into my personal bank account. Then we both recapitalized the business with, I don't remember how much, but, put some money back in for kind of operating income. And so that was kind of where the money went.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, you don't always hear the full story on the mechanics, so appreciate you sharing that. And then just real quick before we get into the exit portion is what happened next? Financially, revenue-wise.
Business continued to grow. And we had a pretty strong, continued to have a pretty strong, next year. I think it ended up, I don't know, doubling in the next year around or, something like that, which then, kind of put us in an interesting spot come around a year later when, I don't know if you want me to,
yeah, sure.
Spoiler alert.
Keep going. No, let's go.
So, and again, also with one of the thoughts or hopes of bringing on that investor was this guy's had a really successful career and found a lot of great opportunities. And maybe this would lead to more good opportunities for, me and our business. And, so fast forward about a year, was catching up with my partner on, just on a call. I was in Vietnam. I don't know where he was. And I was just kind of mentioning, and it's kind of crazy. I was just thinking, I just got back from a family trip. And just I don't know, the family trips are interesting because you're not really working. So it's but you're, I don't know, we had a bunch of different car rides. And so it was just like thinking a lot about business and direction. I was like, oh, like, like I wonder, maybe like down the road it'd be maybe like a Chinese person would be a good buyer. It's like, all right, we like, have this business, have this asset. Like, oh, I bet like Chinese people, like, yeah, like they could be a good buyer. And anyway, wasn't really acting much on that, but, was catching up with my partner. And so he had previously sold a few businesses to this big Chinese company. And, we were kind of catching up, and then he just kind of mentioned like, oh, like, by the way, that company might be interested in buying our business. Like, what do you think? And I was interested. And so, yeah, basically like 3 days later, was on a plane to China to meet with the business and the CEO. And, long story short, came to an agreement to sell. So we sold the USA side of the business for just under $1 million. And yeah, that's, I guess, how that kind of came about.
Wow. So in just over a year, maybe year and a half, you went from doing, I forget the first number. The first number I remember was around $4.5 or $15,000 in revenue. And then a year and a half later, or a year later, not even a year later, you sell half the company, and then you sell the whole company for $1 million or just under $1 million a year later. So that's a pretty quick turnaround from getting something that started working to taking some chips off the table to taking even more chips off the table. That's a pretty awesome story. So do you still own the European piece of the business or outside of the US? Because you said this was just the US, right?
Yeah. So yes, still have the EU side. And just kind of a little explanation of why we, sold the US one was like, so we had a bunch of like, just kind of like products in production and launching on the EU side. And so like it wasn't really at a place where it could sell, versus where the US side, which had just kind of been, weren't as aggressively launching products there. It was more just kind of running and profitable. And so it made that easier and more attractive acquisition. And then the other side was, wasn't really at a place. And so yeah, it did end up keeping that, as well as keeping most of my team that was running those businesses.
That's a pretty awesome result. Normally, when there's an exit that happens, you lose the cash flow. So to keep a cash flowing piece of the business, even if it wasn't as profitable or maybe even not profitable at the time, at least there was a cash flow generating machine that you got to hold on to. So taking chips off the table creates an interesting problem. We've had this conversation with a number of our clients, and once the mindset change that happens, once you go from cash flowing in to a pile of money in the bank depleting, that does some things with your head, right? It's a different problem to have. So could you talk through a little bit about how that changed your approach moving forward, and then getting into some of the investing stuff as well?
Yeah. So, after that, after we had the exit, still had and was working on the EU side of the business. And, but it was kind of something like thought that, I don't know, just thinking more like longer term about what direction do I want my career to be going in. And, I had enough, or got some money, not enough to retire, not that I would want to, but, enough to, buy myself some kind of time and thinking about, honestly, like a lot of really challenging questions. What should I do? What am I good at? What's important? What do I like? Where should I go? Who do I want to be with? Like all these, kind of like, these, wrestling with these like existential questions. And I had gone the previous year, and then went again the following summer, attended it's called the Blacksmith Camp, or Sovereign Academy, put on by the Sovereign Man community. And I mean, that both years that I attended that camp were like super, super impactful. Learned a ton. Some of the mentors there are still some of the smartest entrepreneurs that I've ever had the opportunity to, meet and learn from. And yeah, it was like at that camp that summer that kind of got me thinking more about being an investor myself. And, some of the mentors there, like they're very successful and experienced investors. And, I learned a lot and got really inspired. And after that summer, and it was interesting, kind of like the switch of thinking like, oh, like, all right, like I want to be an investor. A lot of it was, mental, kind of like, self-talk and, imposter syndrome. And it's like, oh, well, like, I couldn't be an investor. Like, I don't know what to do, or, I couldn't do that. And then kind of a shift of just kind of being like, no, like, you know what? Like, why not? Like, all right, like, I want to do this. Like, why can't I do this? And so, yeah, then after that summer, well, one of the things that I kind of started to learn is if you want to be an investor, it's like, yeah, one thing about having some capital, but you got to find a deal. So that was kind of became like a big project after that summer. Was like, all right, like if I want to be an investor, like I got to find a deal. So, all right, first started looking at monitoring stuff on all the brokerages and looking at tons of prospectuses and that's cool. Like we saw a lot of businesses, and I definitely just learned a lot just looking at different prospectuses and seeing what's available. And one thing that I kind of also learned or realized was that, understandably, overwhelmingly the businesses that you find on brokerages with a nice prospectus, they're going to be fairly or appropriately priced. They're going to have a very, there's a somewhat of a standard of how much profit the business makes and how old it is and what kind of business to get like somewhat standard valuation process for businesses that you'll find from a broker or in a marketplace. And, one thing that I kind of also realized was that I was shooting for, trying to find better deals than normal, and that I didn't really have, I had some capital, but didn't have enough where I was just going to like, throw it at something and just kind of be a passive investor. I was trying to get outsized returns from the capital that I invested. Then the way that I thought that I was able, in order to do that, like I had to generate my own deal flow and I had to, find some opportunities. They weren't just going to come, nicely, wrapped and, handed to me. Like I had to go out and like find and create those opportunities. And so then that became the next kind of project or thing. And started like a lot of it, putting myself out there, did a bunch of podcasts and talked about my story and, and a lot of the stuff like talking about what I, a lot of like, what I believed in and, some of this looping back to, my decision to take on an investor and still where I'm at now and in my career, like I'd rather get a smaller piece of a bigger pie. I'd rather work and collaborate with really smart people, like find the 1 + 1 = 3 opportunities. Like, I don't know, I guess the older that I've gotten, like the less ego I think that I have in, I don't know, whatever I'm pursuing. Like when I was younger, it was like, oh, like, I don't know, like I had something to prove, or I thought I had something to prove. And, like I wanted to do this myself and blah, blah, blah. But
yeah, I can relate to that for sure.
Yeah. And then, moving forward, like, I don't know, I guess I just came more, confident or mature in myself and, where I was at and what opportunities I wanted. And like, oh, like, no, like, instead of trying to like keep it all for myself, it's like, no, like, why not work with other like super smart and awesome and talented people and, go after a bigger pie and just have like more fun doing it and, accelerate your learning curve and the growth. And anyway, so, and that stuff that, I started talking about that as well on these different podcasts and just kind of like keeping my eyes open for whatever might be, an opportunity to invest. And that was something that I also like a lesson or something that I took away from Blacksmith Camp that summer was like, it was like move forward with the first best opportunity. And that's something also that I've definitely learned or change of thinking that I thought when I like first, started to pursue investing. At first I thought like, oh, all right, like I got to go on all these podcasts and I got to do all this to market myself and grow my brand and get all this deal flow. And once I'm getting all this deal flow, then I'll find an opportunity. And, what I've come to realize is that, with deals, like it's like a 1-to-1 sort of thing. Like you don't need to have, 100 deals coming a week. All you really need, I mean, certainly that would be useful. And I mean, depends on what sort of scale you're trying to invest or acquire. But, all you need to move forward is like, you just need one, right opportunity. And yeah, so, fast forward a little bit, was having some conversations and, kind of exploring some stuff. And, towards the end of 2017, yeah, like kind of, was chatting with really awesome guy, Brent, who had an Amazon PPC, like a small Amazon PPC agency. And I knew Brent because he actually had done some consulting for me and my business. And so I knew him, we'd worked together. I knew he did good work, really stand-up guy. And, it was in a space that I was, familiar with, Amazon PPC. And yeah, that, kind of back to at the beginning, talking about the courage to, ask the questions. At a certain point, we were talking, and then it just kind of asked like, hey, like, might you be interested in, exploring some sort of, investment partnership, sort of thing. And Brent was open and interested. And yeah, that's, then that again started the kind of dance over the next, few weeks or month or so or whatever to come to an agreement, and actually invested in that business with my previous or other business partner who invested in my business. And yeah, we came to an agreement to, officially move forward sometime, I guess, early last year.
Okay. And could you talk a little bit about the deal structure there? Is that 100% equity? Is it a debt structure? Is there any sort of payback for whatever you can reveal publicly?
Sure. Yeah. So, it was 75% cash down. And again, we bought a, similar to when I sold the part of my business, it was like, a minority, it was a large minority share, but, Brent was still the boss and the owner and, he had the final decision, it was ultimately his decisions. Still is. And yeah, so it was like 75% cash down with 25%, earn out over the next, year, and kind of loosely based off of, there were some, kind of revenue or sales targets in there, but also admittedly, with all of the deals that I've done, and certainly have and continue to, learn a ton about each of them. And, I think I don't know, like get better at how things should be structured or this or that. But yeah, a lot of stuff, and like, it's kind of like at its core is a lot of trust, and trust that, they're going to hold up their end of, continuing to run this business, and, I'm going to hold up, my end, and kind of the dynamic also, and in which I really enjoy is like, I'm not just a passive investor, like I mentioned earlier, like I don't have enough money to just, be a passive investor. And so yeah, my role is kind of more, investor advisor. And so, I'm certainly not a micromanager, but like I, want to help where I can, have like gotten different team members of mine or that I, had worked with to, help support the business that I invested in. And yeah, just like, being somewhat involved or, clued in and, getting on calls every week or so and catching up and, especially, being clear on what the quarterly priorities are. That's always, something that I really, want to be, involved with, and, Brent's cool with that. And yeah, it's cool. We actually, I think recently just passed the 1 year kind of like official mark, like, cause we kind of like came to a verbal agreement, and then it took, maybe another month or two to like just get the documents kind of, sorted. And anyway, I think we just recently passed the 1 year mark, and super, proud and excited to say that like the business is going super good. It's like, more than doubled the size that, the team has grown. Like it's really, the business has transformed from when I first got involved. And yeah, it's been like overall great. Like Brent's the man, the business is doing awesome. And my understanding is it's just been like a good situation for, everyone. And the business is on continues to be on a really exciting trajectory. And so, yeah, that's kind of been that was the first deal then that I, got involved with as an investor.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, that's a good milestone, 1 year of officially being the investor. So what other stuff have you looked at or invested in after that one deal?
Yeah, so a couple things that I kind of learned or continue to learn, about investing and also just kind of happiness and what I want to do. The investing stuff's cool, and like I enjoy it generally, or so far it's been going pretty well. But I also kind of knew, or realized that I wanted to be, I don't know, like it was important to me to have like my own thing. And, there were times, last year where I'd wake up and I'd have more money in my bank account than I ever had before. I have a clear schedule. It'd be like a Wednesday and I'd do some yoga, I'd eat a healthy lunch, and then like I kind of have the rest of the day free, and like, you think that like, oh, like, that's the dream. But then when you're actually there, I don't know, it's not. I mean, it's nice, sometimes, but like I've definitely come to realize that for just kind of like, personal happiness and well-being, like I really, I get a lot of satisfaction from, achievement and, moving things forward. And it's like, I've realized that it's way less tied to actual amount of dollars generated from certain activities. I mean, listen, like making money is awesome and and closing big deals or good opportunities or big sales, like that's great, totally. But I've also realized that, just for kind of, well-being and happiness and, peace of mind, like it's like equally or, differently, but, also really impactful, just like, making progress. And so, having something that you are building and working on and, being able to like, yeah, make progress on moving this thing forward that you want to be. We'll come back to, some of that more later, but to get back to your, your question then about, additional deals. So then last summer, we saw this crypto website that became for sale on a marketplace that my same business partner that invested in my business, that we both invested in the PPC business, saw the site. And like, I had, I guess like a lot of people gone pretty deep into the crypto scene and, was like looking for another, business to, for me to kind of like, run and be, more involved with than just investor advisor, came across this crypto website that we bought and that like I was kind of running for a while. And, we thought we bought at the bottom of the market. And of course, the market kept going down. And anyway, yeah, a lot of things to kind of get into here. I mean, each of the deals, like there's so, you learn so much from all of them and, about stuff that you might not think that, I don't know, not what you intend to learn. And anyway, so for a while that was good, just like to have something to do and, an opportunity to connect with other people and find different opportunities. And, kind of like, we've talked about, like, I love talking to people and meeting new people and exploring opportunities with people. And so, yeah, like to have a new thing to explore opportunities, like that was cool. But, again, then, fast forward kind of, I mean, with the market continuing to go down and, kind of realize that like, oh, like this isn't going to be my next, like the next big thing for me either. And kind of was like, all right, like kind of getting back to like my roots, like, all right, well, like, what do I know? What do I enjoy? Like, all right, I love entrepreneurship and online business and location independent business and distributed teams. And, that's the stuff that I've really enjoyed about, any of the businesses that I've been involved with. And, as well as like the DC community that, which is how we know each other. And yeah, kind of got back to like.
Before you get into that, because that's a perfect segue into what you're doing now. So just hang on 2 seconds there. I want to circle back to something. So you mentioned that entrepreneurial fire is how I would call it. So when you had a free schedule, it was numbing, right? There was nothing, there was no edge. I firmly believe as an entrepreneur, the way we're wired, we need risk.
Mm-hmm.
We need a chance of failure to actually move forward. That's the only way. When you actually get the result, you see some success. There was risk involved. So I think that's how we're wired. We need uncomfortable situations. We need risk. We need that as much as everyone thinks, especially with Amazon, right? If you have an Amazon-based business, your income is single source. It comes from Amazon. So that can go away. And from time to time, it might. So there's a fear of loss there, but there's also the reward of the upside. So it's like a double-edged sword. So I think that's what you were experiencing there. And I've definitely experienced that at multiple times over the last few years as well, is you get that reminder whenever you think you're comfortable and you're set, you just can't stop.
Yeah.
Right? You need that friction in your life, I think, to move forward and feel alive.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And something to quote a good friend of mine who I think you know as well, my buddy Alec, we were chatting about some of this stuff and kind of talking about this new business that I've been working on. And, he said that like, people need to be assigned or have the right challenges in order for them to shine. And I think it's so true. We need to you need to have the right opportunities in order to continued growth and, moving more towards, whatever your potential. And yeah, so that was kind of, I was continuing to look for that, after I, made these couple investments. I made another investment in another friend's business. This was at the end of last year. And, that was all cool. Like, had a few of these investments, but, again, was still looking for the next, thing and the next, opportunity and challenge that would allow me to, keep growing and building and, give me something to make progress on. And so now, so this was at the end of last summer, still kind of thinking of what opportunities, there might be. And, I mentioned when we sold the part of the Amazon business, kept my team. That's something like that I, really like what I enjoy the most, or some of the things I enjoy the most in business is like, hiring and team building and company culture. And I just think it's such an amazing opportunity and situation that we live in that, I can be here in Bali and I can hire people in Russia or the Philippines or Mexico or America. And, to have the opportunity to, work with a distributed team and tap into the the potential of, working with people across the globe is just like some of the coolest stuff that I just think it's so cool. And, in a lot of like the benefits that I've enjoyed being able to, work and grow businesses while traveling, all over the world. And so, yeah, like that's stuff that I'm really, really passionate about. And I just think is so, so cool. And also like, I really care about my team. Like these are people that, they'd worked for me for a couple of years. I visited them. I knew some of their family. Like, these people are really, really important to me. And like, they're amazing. They were pretty much running the Amazon businesses for me. All the stuff that like, I'll admit, like I'm not super skilled at, many things, maybe like you mentioned, I like asking questions, but like in terms of, I don't know, finance or operations, or if anything, the skill is like finding far better people and more capable people than I am, and empowering them and getting them into the right roles to, run the business better than I would. And so, yeah, so I had this great team, really well trained. They've been working in my, e-commerce businesses for, multiple years, really good people. And yeah, like I wanted, a big motivator for me was like, I felt a responsibility and, just was like driven to, find more opportunities, not just for me, but for them. Like I wanted to be able to provide good opportunities for them, now, this year, next year, long term. And, so then it kind of got me thinking like, oh, well, like, I have these, this great trained team, and the workload on the capacity on the EU business, like it wasn't keeping everybody, I don't know, like we had capacity, but like, I didn't want to fire the team because, like I've said, like they're really important to me. I want to find opportunities for them. And so I started, just kind of thinking, and I was like, oh, like, I wonder if, like there were some other people that wanted help with the things that I originally hired them for. And just kind of started floating the idea to some friends, and, pretty quickly found someone that like, it's like, oh, hey, like, we can handle your, supply chain and finance. It's like, oh, like, do you enjoy doing those things? He's like, no. Like, he's like,
wait, that's part of the business. What are you talking about?
yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, he's like, wow, like, no, this is exactly what I need. I was like, oh, great. We can help. And so yeah, that became our first client or customer for this new business. Yeah. Then, we kind of, over the next few months, found a couple other opportunities to support a few of these other businesses. And, to this point, they've all been friends of mine. I mean, like I think I said or alluded to, but like all the best opportunities, for everything in my life have come from, the amazing network and community of people that I have the good fortune to, know or be a part of. And so, yeah, this business being no exception, was able to, find a handful of different, businesses or people that, wanted help with the services that we were offering. And, for them, it made sense to me. I thought it was a pretty, compelling pitch of like, all right, you do, whatever you enjoy, products or branding or JV or marketing, like whatever the fun stuff that you enjoy, what you're good at, great. You focus on that and like, let us handle all the stuff that, needs to get done, but isn't going to grow the business and isn't particularly, fun. So, supply chain, making sure your goods get from, where they are to where they need to be and staying in stock, and, some of the finance stuff that, like, again, is a necessary piece, especially if you ever want to sell or you ever want to, explore taking on investment. Like, you just need to have, accurate, books and cost of goods and P&L and, all this kind of stuff that's just like is necessary to run a business, but isn't going to grow the business. And so yeah, found some interesting opportunities, supporting friends of mine and their businesses and allowing them to offload and, kind of delegate some of the stuff that they, didn't want to do. And yeah, and then kind of, moving forward, we've, found some, recently some more interesting opportunities now supporting some larger businesses, some like pretty sizable resellers as well as funds. And it's been interesting. And we're kind of, the business is still, it's pretty new, and we're definitely trying to figure out the long-term vision and what the best opportunity for us to add value and, receive value and long-term, benefit for everyone. But yeah, it's been cool. We've been finding some interesting opportunities with these, larger businesses that like, we start doing, X and then, they're happy with the work. And and we've got an amazing team, great people that, really know what they're doing. And a big benefit of working with us is like, we scale really well because, we have a great team, we have a great culture, we're really good at hiring, we're really good at training, we're really good at onboarding. And so for these businesses, they're like, all right, we're going to be adding on, X accounts every month. I was like, all right, great. The more the better. Or like, all right, we need you to make, 100 product listings, in 2 weeks. Like, all right, fine, whatever. Just like bring it on, whatever it is, we can handle it. And so, yeah,
that's pretty. Sorry, yeah, that's pretty amazing. We deal with a lot of groups that are actively acquiring brands and businesses, and we were talking before we hit record that how much of a pain point that is. And oftentimes I find that the buy side overestimates capability. They just may not know until they're actually running a business what it takes to run an Amazon-based brand. Maybe they're focused on acquiring as many as possible, but when it comes to operating, they really have to run to keep up with that. So I think that we've introduced some people, and I think that could be a really interesting space because that's such a pain point of not only knowing Amazon, but knowing your logistics supply chain and the finance side as well as helpful, especially when it comes to cost of goods. Even some of the large deals we're prepping to take to market right now, the finances are always the biggest roadblock to getting accurate numbers to take to market is our number one pain point ourselves. So I might talk to you about that after the call. So that's awesome. So I want to get to what the company's called. So it's called Sellerplex, your new business.
Yes.
And so as well as funds, what would be the ideal clients? If I'm listening to this episode and I think, oh, I need help with logistics, I need help with finance, maybe I'll reach out. Is it just go to the website, or is there some thresholds of what type of client would be best?
So it seems like right now we're kind of developing like two different buckets of kind of ideal customers and, still kind of, I don't know, figuring out which one, or maybe it's both. But yeah, on one hand is like, small teams or, solo, founders or, sellers that, are getting traction and like, want to expand their operations, but they don't enjoy or aren't as experienced with the hiring and the training and also in some of these areas like, supply chain and finance that, I personally, don't know very much about. And so, so for them, it's like, all right, if they're growing and expanding and, if they, love launching products and marketing, but like they don't get particularly excited or don't have the experience, hiring and training and managing and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, I think we're a good fit because, we've got a ton of experience and processes and systems and SOPs. And so, instead of them trying to like hire and train and onboard someone on their own team, it's like they can hire us and we basically, train and onboard them and like get set up with a lot of these systems that, we've built from running our businesses. And now we get, really cool experience and exposure, working in other people's businesses to just, get really good systems and processes and foundations. And anyway, and so, in those businesses like, million plus revenue, our services start at, on the low end, like a couple $1,000s a month. And so it's not for someone if they're trying to find, $500 a month VA to do like, we're very skilled and experienced. And so, you get that from working with us. And I mean, I guess if you're a smaller business and, you are willing to pay more, that's okay. But our services start at, around a couple grand a month for, the solo brands. And then, on the other side, and like I said, more recently, and what's, I don't know, I guess maybe the current, I don't know, maybe like most interesting or potentially exciting is this opportunity to work with like, bigger brands and funds. And yeah, like, again, I think that a big, maybe our strongest, our biggest strength or asset is our ability to, scale. And like, for us, I mean, it, certainly could be a challenge, but like, we can handle, 1, 2, 5, 10, like, whatever the workload at this point, confident that we can effectively scale and grow and, grow our team to manage whatever that is. And yeah, and it's like, and again, we've got a really strong place where we're starting from because, I mean, the team has expanded the last few months, but we still have like, I mean, we've got a lot of great experience and a lot of smart people. And so that's some of the other benefit that any of these businesses get from working with us is it's like, maybe, 1 or 2 people are the, kind of like point of contact or project managers for the supply chain work or the finance work or something also that we're actually finding a lot of people have a big pain is like catalog management, dealing with seller support and listings get this or that. And like, we've got great people that just know how to, fix those issues. Anyway, when you're working with us, it's like, you don't just get, Weena or Carissa or Ivan, or you really get the knowledge base and support and training of this entire team. So yeah, there's,
I was talking to a group, actually. I've been talking to them for about a year overall, and they have about 10,000 SKUs that they manage. So talk about catalog management. That's a nightmare. Optimizing all those listings is a pain point for sure. And then obviously the logistics on the other side as well. Mm-hmm. But is there a size? You mentioned 2, 3, 10. You're talking about brands or companies there that you could onboard at one time. Is there a SKU limit? If someone has 100,000 SKUs, obviously that would take some time, but is there a comfortable level, do you think?
I mean, at this point, recognize that the bigger the project or scope, certainly would be a challenge. And, I'm not going to say that we can do any and all of these things, tomorrow. But I mean, until this point, I don't know. We've got I'm confident, that we could figure it out. And I know it'd be, again, I'm not saying it would be without challenge. And, my team too, when this first, one of these, this big reseller business that we work with, we were kind of doing this. And then all of a sudden, I had a call or one person on my team was like, Nate, they just gave us this huge project. They need 50 listings done and they want it done by, da 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 da. I was like, all right, it's okay. Calm down. We can do this, we'll figure it out. And yeah, fast forward and yeah, we were able to figure that out. And we did have to bring on some additional help. And we did have to get better, processes and organization in place to be able to do that. As we do, whether it's, creating or, optimizing a ton of listings at scale, or whether it's, onboarding and getting organizations set up in place from, businesses that are acquired that I'm also learning and realize, and as you've alluded to, a lot of them are a mess. They're, booked, the finances are a mess, and the, invoices and the POs and just the way that the structure is, it's really I don't know, they're just, messy. And then as well as then trying to get, them into, we've got systems for how we, track and manage inventory and reorders and coordinate with this and that, and how we, keep track of all the files, that need to be organized so that you can, calculate accurate cost of goods, so you can have accurate finances, and just so that stuff's, organized. And, and again, like that's not to say that we, as our workload, has increased, and as we've gotten, more experience and exposure to these bigger scaled projects, all just like our organization keeps getting better, our hiring and training keeps getting better. And so, I mean, back to, to your question, I would see, as big of a project, I would just see that as a big challenge and opportunity. And I don't know, at this point, I don't know if I would, time frame is something. If you want, we need 10,000 listings tomorrow, that would be challenging. But if you needed 10,000 listings in 2 weeks or a month, or, whatever it is, I don't know, we've got really good organization and training in place. So maybe we need to hire 10 people, and or maybe you need to hire, 5 or whatever. We can kind of, we can scale the work just by, hiring more people, because we have good, training and systems and processes and, around how to do a lot of these things.
I think that's amazing. And, if your eyes are glazing over when we're talking about finance here, you should definitely reach out to Nate or get some help with that. But the biggest takeaway from your story, from my perspective at least, is to see where you've come from as an outsider looking in. We catch up maybe a few times a year if we're lucky, or once a year maybe, but then we do calls and stuff. So I'm constantly observing from the sideline. But what I've seen is you've managed to capitalize on the opportunity. It's not a bouncing from one thing to another. It's looking at what you're building, looking at your skill set, being real with yourself, being true to who you really are and what you like, and then scaling that. And this business, there's so much passion when you're talking about this. And I love the fact that you're building this for your team, essentially, to give them more opportunities. And you're seeing opportunities, problems in the marketplace where your team can help. So you're literally hunting for opportunities for your team. I think once you step outside of your own needs, so your own day-to-day, your own financial security, once you step out of that and start doing something bigger that has more meaning and has potentially more people involved, it's more rewarding. You're responsible for more people, and there's more friction there, but also more reward. So it's pretty awesome that you've come through this whole journey. And I really appreciate your time today to talk about this, because I'm just a fan. I'm a fan of what you're doing. So I love it, man.
Well, appreciate, all that and, and the kind words. And yeah, the feeling is certainly mutual. It's crazy thinking back. I think I remember, we were chatting one time specifically, after I gave a presentation on, how to do Pinterest marketing or something, and catching up with you, then, and, whatever you were doing, and, both, fast forward and, we've, spoken about this before, and it's just been amazing to, be on this journey together, and, to see where your business, has grown and direction it's going in, and, the opportunities that you're, looking at and pursuing now, super inspiring and amazing. And, it's an honor and a pleasure to get to share my story, with your audience and on your show. And yeah, just looking forward to more opportunities to, hopefully, get to work together and support each other in, who knows what, but, whatever down the line, like you said, I know both of us taking this long-term view, how can we add value? What sort of, assets can we, build or hone to, find good opportunities, for the long term. So,
yeah, I think long term's where it's at, mate, for sure. And thanks for those kind words too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, how can people reach out to you, Nate?
Yeah. If anyone, is curious to, chat about, any of this stuff, any of the services that Sellerplex might be able to support you and your business, as well as the investing stuff, I just enjoy, and, happy to chat about that too. Yeah, you can reach me at nate@sellerplex.com. We're finishing up the website. Hopefully we'll be done. It's pretty much done, but yeah, sellerplex.com, and nate@sellerplex.com. Happy to chat, happy to connect, love to connect with, new and interesting people. And yeah, just appreciate the time and the opportunity to share and chat. And we'll have to do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got so much more I want to talk about with you, but we'll have to save that for another time. I'll make sure all of those links are in the show notes. And if you search, if you don't mind, I might put a link to your Instagram as well. Your Instagram stuff is pretty impressive, mate. You've been working on that yoga for a while, and yeah, it's bloody impressive.
Cheers, man. Yeah, at Nate Ginsburg, if you like, yoga and handstand and, some travel pictures. Yeah, would love to follow, love to connect, Instagram, email, Facebook, anything.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much for jumping on the show. I know people will get a lot out of this episode. So thanks so much, brother, for coming on. And yeah, we'll definitely have part 2 coming up shortly.
All right. Sounds good, Corin. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Truth About Exits. Now, whenever you're ready, here are 3 ways I can help you. If your company is doing between 10 to 50 million plus in revenue and you want help to plan your perfect exit to achieve the highest value and best deal terms possible, or if you'd like advice on acquiring other companies to continue to grow your company, we can help. Go to truthaboutexits.com/consult. There you'll see a simple form to tell us a little bit more about you, your company, and your goals, and my team and I will take it from there. So go to truthaboutexits.com/consult. The second way I can help is become a guest on our show. If you've had a successful exit, you want to share your story, or if you're actively acquiring other businesses and want to share your criteria with our audience, go to truthaboutexits.com/guest. Let's connect, and I'd love to talk to you. The third way I can help you is one of my favorite things in the entire world is sharing the Truth About Exit stories with other entrepreneurs by speaking at events all over the world. So far, I've had the privilege of speaking at events in the US, Canada, UK, Spain, Germany, Ukraine, Czech Republic, over in Asia, China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and even Australia. If you would like me to speak at your next event, go to truthaboutexits.com/speaker and tell me a little bit more about your event, and we'll go from there. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.